Hey guys, welcome to the final section of this tutorial course where we are looking at how you can use sidechain compression outside of a kick and bass to make your mixes cooler, specifically in the EDM world. So I have a little demo worked up that I'm going to play for you real quick. All right, you get the idea. So the pink tracks up here are the lead. All right, we have 3 basses down here, 2 of which we have a sub bass right here. We have a top bass using that preset that I talked about in the previous video inside of the LFO tool. All right, so we have this bass that I bounced to audio as well. That is sidechained like the sub bass was. So we have all that going on. And when I played the mix, it sounded pretty good, but we can do something else to it, which is pretty cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the synths, none of which happen to be sidechain compressed or LFO tooled or any variants thereof. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce that to audio. And now what I'm going to do is, here's the audio of all of those synths. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the LFO tool on this, or I could sidechain compress it, which we can look at in a second. We'll do both methods. I'm going to do sidechain. We're going to do this one. We'll stick with that one. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend those two together. So I could, I'm going to take these, highlight them all, turn it down a little, turn this down. All right, so this does 2 things. It adds some nice pumping to my mix, which I like, but it also allows me to turn down the main synth tracks here in pink, which if you look at the MIDI information, I have information occurring or events or notes happening at the same time as the kick. Now, granted that they are played in a much higher frequency and they're not going to conflict with the frequency, they are conflicting with the space and the time, those elements of space and time with the arrangement of the kick. And what this does is it allows me to turn those down and bring up the volume of the bounced version of all of those together and the layer of the synths, and it allows me to turn that up, and that has some sidechain compression on it via the LFO tool. So what that's doing is it's turning down the volume in the attack stage, which just gives my kick that much more room to breathe. This also adds, in my opinion, a cool bounce to this mix. All right, so it sounds like that. Now, if you don't have the LFO tool and you're opting more for the classic take on sidechain compression, you would create a ghost track. So we would take this kick, and I'm going to kill the stereo output, so I'm going to do no output. Now, I could have done this the alternative method. We looked at this in the previous video where I could have sent this kick to a bus, and I could have killed the output of that bus, but I'm just going to create a ghost track right under it. So what we're going to do now is I'll play this. You can see that audio is occurring, but there's no sound. That's exactly what we want. So now I'm going to load up a compressor, and we're just going to load up the stock compressor inside of Logic. And I need to choose the sidechain input, which is this audio 15. So I'm going to look for that. We'll do audio 15, and now this track is telling the compressor when to actually be triggered. All right, same thing that I did with the LFO tool, just doing it a different way. All right, there you go. There is a look at some creative techniques to sidechain compression outside of cleaning up space in your mix for the kick and the bass. Now, you could use this on a couple more things that we'll look at real quick. So I'm going to turn the compressor off and go back to the LFO tool, mute that. All right, so let's look at hi-hats. Another really cool thing you can do is add a little bit of sidechain compression. Again, either using the classic way where you create a ghost track or a bus send or aux send with the output muted, or you can use a tool like the LFO tool. I'm going to do this with the LFO tool for this example, and I'm going to do just some subtle sidechain effect on the hi-hats. Now this could be a really cool thing to add some real life likeness to your tracks, hi-hat tracks. All right, now this drop cymbal would be an interesting candidate, in my opinion, for some sidechain compression. White noise, if you think about the frequency spectrum of something that is white noise oriented, it has a lot of different frequencies represented. If I pull up the channel equalizer, it has a lot going from 2,000 to about 20,000, and that happens to be where my lead is. Now, don't get me wrong, I want that to help fill out the lead, but I think it'll benefit from having a little bit of sidechain compression. Especially with things like the kick and potential claps that you might have in. So I already have some LFO tool doing a little bit of sidechain compression on that track. So let's play the cymbals and the hi-hats. And now I'm going to turn off the LFO tool on all those. It sounds more mechanical to me. And again, that bounce really helps make the EDM track, I think, come to life. All right, there you go, guys. There are some creative looks at how you can use sidechain compression outside of the norm of cleaning up space in your mix for your kick and bass and your low-end instruments. You can really use it anywhere that you want or need, or you can get creative with it. There's a lot of cool things you can do with sidechain compression. You can actually do things like put sidechain compression or an LFO tool on a reverb bus. So you're just compressing the reverb signal or the delayed signal with like a stereo delay plugin. There's a lot that you can do outside of just the norm. Play around with it if you kind of get the idea of what would this sound like with a bit of bounce and sidechain compression. It usually turns out to be a pretty cool effect. It's very musical in my opinion. Again, like I said at the beginning, I'm Echo Soundworks. Thank you so much for deciding to check out this course. I will see you next time.